The Blue Light Drugstore is downtown, between the Bowery and First Avenue, where the two streets are closest. The Blue Light is not like other pharmacies that sell pretty things and ice cream soda. If you ask for medicine, it won't give you candy. The Blue Light doesn't use modern machines to make its medicines. It crushes opium and makes its own medicine called laudanum and paregoric. They still make pills behind the tall counter. Pills are rolled on a special board, cut with a tool, shaped by hand, dusted with powder, and put in small boxes. Kids play near the store, hoping to get cough drops and syrups inside. Icky Schoenstein works at night at the Blue Light and is friends with the customers. On the East Side, pharmacists are more than just sellers. They listen to people's problems, give advice, and help like a wise friend. People trust their knowledge. Icky, with his glasses and knowledge, is well known here. His advice is valuable. Icky lives and eats breakfast at Mrs. Riddle's place nearby. Mrs. Riddle has a daughter named Rosy. Icky loved Rosy. She was his everything. But Icky was shy and scared to tell her. At the store, he felt important and smart, but outside, he was a clumsy guy with messy clothes smelling like medicine. The problem in Icky's life was Chunk McGowan. Mr. McGowan also liked Rosy. But he was bolder than Icky. He was friends with Icky and came to the Blue Light Drugstore for help with his bruises or cuts after a night on the Bowery. One day, McGowan came in and sat down. He asked Icky for something, but Icky couldn't see any signs of a fight on his face. "Take off your jacket," he said. "I think you got a poke with a knife in your side. I told you those guys might hurt you." Mr. McGowan smiled and said, "Not those guys, not anyone like them. But you're right about the problem, it's under my jacket, near my side. Listen, Icky, Rosy and I are planning to run away and get married tonight." Icky's finger was on the edge of the medicine bowl, holding it steady. He hit it hard with the tool but didn't feel it. Mr. McGowan's smile turned into a worried look. "That is," he continued, "if she still wants to when the time comes. We've been planning this for 2 weeks. One day she says yes, but then she says no. We've decided on tonight, and this time Rosy has been saying yes for 2 whole days. But there are still 5 hours to go, and I'm worried she'll change her mind." "You said you needed medicine," Icky said. Mr. McGowan seemed uneasy and not his usual self. He rolled a medicine calendar around his finger, looking very careful. "I can't afford any mistakes tonight," he said. "I've got a little apartment in Harlem ready with flowers and a kettle on the stove. I even hired a preacher to marry us at 9:30. It has to happen tonight. But what if Rosy changes her mind again?" Mr. McGowan stopped, filled with doubts. "I still don't see," Icky said, "why you're talking about medicine or what I can do. Rosy's dad, Mr. Riddle, doesn't like me at all," the worried suitor explained. "He hasn't let Rosy go out with me for a week. If it weren't for losing a tenant, they'd have kicked me out long ago. I make $20 a week, and Rosy won't regret leaving with Chunk McGowan. Excuse me, Chunk, Icky said. I have to make a prescription that someone will pick up soon. Wait, said McGowan, suddenly looking up. Icky, isn't there some kind of medicine powders maybe that can make a girl like you more if you give them to her? Icky smirked, showing he knew better, but before he could answer, McGowan went on. Tim Lacey told me he got some from a doctor uptown and put them in his girlfriend's soda. After just one dose, she thought he was the best, and everyone else was less important. They got married in less than 2 weeks. Chunk McGowan was strong and straightforward. Even someone like Icky could see that he was careful and determined. Like a general planning a battle, he wanted to make sure everything was perfect. I thought, Chunk continued hopefully, that if I had one of those powders to give Rosy at dinner tonight, it might make her feel better and stick to our plan. She doesn't need much convincing, but sometimes women need a little push. If the medicine works for a couple of hours, it'll do the job. When is this plan to run away happening? Icky asked. 9 o'clock, said Mr. McGowan. We'll have supper at 7. At 8, Rosy pretends to have a headache and goes to bed. At 9, Mr. Parvanzano lets me into his backyard through a hole in Riddle's fence. I'll be under her window, and I'll help her down the fire escape. We have to do it early because of the preacher. It's all simple if Rosy doesn't change her mind. Can you make one of those powders for me, Icky? Icky Schoenstein rubbed his nose slowly. Chunk, he said, we need to be very careful with medicines like that. But for you, I'll make it, and you'll see how it makes Rosy think of you. Icky went to the counter and crushed 2 tablets containing a little bit of morphia into powder. He added some sugar to make it look like more, and put it in a white paper. If an adult took this powder, they would sleep heavily for a few hours without danger. He gave it to Chunk McGowan, telling him to mix it with liquid if he could, and Chunk thanked him warmly. But Icky had a plan. He sent a message to Mr. Riddle and told him about Mr. McGowan's plan to run away with Rosy. Mr. Riddle was a big, tough man with a red face who acted quickly. Thanks a lot, he said to Icky. That lazy Irish guy. My room is just above Rosy's. After supper, I'll go up there myself, load my shotgun, and wait. If he comes into my backyard, he won't leave in a wedding carriage, he'll leave in an ambulance. With Rosy sound asleep for many hours and her angry father waiting with a loaded gun, Icky thought that his rival was about to face a big problem. All night long, Icky waited in the blue light drugstore for any news about what happened, but he didn't hear anything. At 8 o'clock in the morning, the daytime clerk came to work, and Icky hurried to Mrs. Riddle's place to find out what had happened. And guess who he bumped into as he stepped out of the store? It was none other than Chunk McGowan, jumping off a passing streetcar and grabbing Icky's hand. Chunk McGowan was wearing a big smile and looked really happy. We did it, Chunk said with joy in his smile. Rosy made it down the fire escape right on time, and we got to the Reverend's at 9:30 and a quarter. She's up at the apartment. She even cooked eggs this morning wearing a blue robe. I'm so lucky. You should visit us sometime, Icky, and have a meal with us. I have a job near the bridge, and that's where I'm headed now. What about the, powder? Icky stammered. Oh, the stuff you gave me. Chunk said, grinning even wider. Well, here's what happened. I sat down at the dinner table last night at the Riddles, and I looked at Rosy. I thought to myself, Chunk, if you want the girl, do it honestly, no tricks with a wonderful girl like her. So I kept the paper you gave me in my pocket. Then I noticed someone else at the table who, I thought, wasn't too happy about his future son-in-law, so I waited for the right moment and put that powder into Mr. Riddle's coffee, understand?